Grace grant. Okay, now,
Oh, and Roy, he's an official member now.
Yeah.
oh yeah. Thank you for pointing that out. Maybe he'll be late. Okay. So, Vivian, you have new business?
Well, I think we have to decide what we're gonna do about the minutes with Grace and I.
Oh, I was gonna say,
I'll take the minutes.
okay.
Oh.
She said that if no one wants to take them,
Happy
she
to
will
do it.
take them from the tape.
But I don't want her to have to do that.
Happy to
Okay.
do it.
Kevin's doing it.
Okay.
You're the man, Kevin.
You're the man. Got it.
You can type.
Okay.
Okay, so there was an article about the town of Esopus who recently had their comprehensive plan. It was not that recently. I think they were the first one off the block to do their comp plan update.
Okay.
And that might have been a couple of years ago. But since then, they've redone their zoning. So now people are really seeing what the new zoning allows, and they're not happy.
Oh, geez.
They're not happy because these multifamily buildings and, you know, all the things that are going to be expanded now because of the zoning allowing more types of buildings
Mhm.
for housing, they are now having them invisible. You know, people who are close to them are complaining.
Because,
And there's a campground being proposed with 54 campsites and 15 cabins that they're calling themselves a wellness center, and apparently that's allowed in zoning now. But I'm not saying this is necessarily a bad thing
Right.
altogether. I'm just saying that now that the community is seeing what new things are being allowed and built, now they're
Right.
hearing complaints. So it may be that these things are good for the community. It's just that people are getting loud about it.
correct.
Was a lot of that in response to a severe shortage of affordable housing?
I'm sure it's all over. It's all over, yeah.
Well, this is an issue with, and I always, my response to people like that is, how involved were you? Because if you're not, you know, if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
If they're not gonna be involved and they're not gonna make their preferences known and nobody hears them, then people hear, you know, the people who come to the meetings. I know somebody who is freaking out over the rail trail. Thinks it's the worst thing that ever happened.
Are they near it?
Not so near it, but they have a lot of,
Are they missing the railroad? I mean, that's
no, it's not
what I
about the
hear,
railroad.
yeah.
It's about bringing, basically bringing hikers into the area, like
You're talking about the existing one or
the proposed one.
Oh, okay.
And then I know they did the one down by the reservoir. Okay, that one was easy because it's by the reservoir. And, you know, but there wasn't that many
You didn't have
families
to deal
and
with too
stuff.
many private landowners.
Correct. And now,
Yeah. Didn't show up
TEP
to the
was, it was a 10-year process with the.
yeah, so now, you know, they're gonna bring it up to Pine Hill, and it does come close to a lot of properties. And there are people who are for it and people who are against it. And I kinda, you know, just felt like this thing's been in the works forever. I mean, it was on a documentary on Channel 13, Rail Trails in New York State. And I was like, we've been talking about this environmental tourism forever. Like,
Yeah.
where were you when they were having these hearings? And I guess they're still gonna have to have more meetings and stuff. I don't know the process. But,
Have they worked out private property in that area?
I don't know. I don't
Uh-huh.
know. My biggest, it's not that I'm against it or for it. I mean, it doesn't matter either way to me. If I had to vote, I would say, yeah, I think it's a good thing. But the parking, they want to put a parking spots in Pine Hill. And that is.
For the rail trail?
Yeah, and now they're gonna have it at High Mount, and they wanna put 2 spots, these roads that make a loop, and they wanna put 2 spots there. And it's basically a dead end, because it loops around and comes out. And I'm like, okay, so now we're gonna have people driving into town to try and get one of those two spots, and they're gonna always be full. And then they're gonna be
Only
driving
two?
back out.
That's
Only
it?
two.
Only two
No, there's
parking
gonna be more down at Bel Air, down by, in High Mount. But that's where the main parking lot is. And I'm like, no, there shouldn't be parking in Pine Hill, because we have a parking problem anyway. And now if we get people parking for the rail trail, it's just gonna make it worse.
Well, is there room to put in new parking spaces by the rail trail?
Well, they wanna put, that's what they wanna put
I
in.
mean, is there like property
It's on their.
that's the state-owned
Yeah,
property?
it's,
They want to put it
it's
on
the
state-owned?
right of way. They wanna put it on the right of way.
Where the old train station is currently?
Yeah, there's no train, there's only a station master's house.
Right.
But if the
train
state owns
station's
that
in
property,
Kingston.
yeah, if
Well,
the state
see,
owns
the-
property, then
no.
it's not taking away from the town, is it?
No, what I'm saying is the
Uh-huh.
effect of it. The effect
that
of
the
having
people
those.
will know to come
Is
there,
that
yeah.
people will know there's parking spaces
Yeah.
there. It's gonna bring them into the hamlet, but there's only 2 parking spaces. So chances are they're gonna be full, and then we're gonna have them in
The town is gonna
town.
be doing the improvements on the existing parking area, so that.
I realize that, but
that
the
should help.
existing parking area isn't even enough for what's in Pine Hill
Yeah.
right now.
May I recommend that we get started on
Okay,
on
yeah,
our
you're right,
goals
we're
for
going
today?
down rabbit
And,
hole.
and we'll just,
That's why I need her.
we'll leave the chitty chatty for another time? Okay, so my recommendation is that we planned, read through from top to bottom, the comp plan. This also, I was just thinking will be a cool opportunity for anybody who is following or does look back on a recording of this, then they'll also they might not have had access to this another way, so I have this digitally, and I think you either everybody has it printed or, so.
Are we gonna put a time limit on this so we can also do the questions?
Sure.
Because that's what we decided last month.
Can we skip like the existing conditions?
Yeah, I think
Well, what part do you think we should read?
we should, okay, what we agreed on is that we were gonna just go through and read from top to bottom, and as we're going through, as a group, to just call out any high-level notes or comments or things that we want to make edits to. And that getting to the questions is important, and that we will do that as well, but this was our step one, and that it will be we can carry on to the following month if we need to. So, does that,
I don't think we have time to read very much of it. If we're going to do the questions, which I thought we were making that a time priority because we want to get the feedback as soon as possible.
Would it not take a couple hours to read through the whole comprehensive plan? I
Yeah.
actually have the draft here, and it's about 300 pages. This is a draft copy.
300 pages?
Yeah, from 2004.
We have,
Oh, that's a real draft.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
I think it was on the first.
Okay, so maybe Vivian has obviously expressed, am I misremembering?
Yeah, I always rewatch the meeting before we come to refresh myself.
Uh-huh.
And we did decide we were gonna do both those things, but we were gonna also we were gonna go over the questions for half an hour. Everybody was gonna read the questions online and bring in their questions. And then, we were gonna go to that, the comprehensive plan. I mean, I had gone over the, what?
Is it one of these days?
I know.
The comprehensive plan, you guys.
Well,
Well, we're supposed to be reading it on our own, right?
Yes, okay, yep. So based on what it says from our meeting, from our agenda from last time, is before the next meeting, committee members will add any questions they want to see on the survey to the Google Doc for review at the July meeting. Also, during the next meeting, the committee will review the current comprehensive plan together. So,
When I had the opportunity to watch it online, I think the order that was stated was that we would read it together first, because that might trigger some thoughts
thank you.
that we would then include in the discussion about questions.
okay.
Correct.
But I was not here for that discussion. So.
Right. I also remember that our goal was that we start with collectively reading the plan together.
Mm-hmm.
That we will get to making a list of questions, but that this was our priority. If we are deciding now that this is no longer our priority, we can obviously do something different.
I
But
do think it's good to do this before, so that we have a shared understanding of what is
yeah,
good, bad,
I
and
agree.
different with the current, because people might have very different understandings when they read them at home. And I don't think reading has to be like reading the whole thing out loud. It could just be like vision statement, like, you know,
Right.
what do you think of this vision statement? Like, what pops out? What?
Right. I do think that there are certain, I personally think that it does benefit us to read
The whole
it
thing, yeah.
out loud. I think there's gonna be lots of parts where we probably are not gonna read. We're not gonna read every single factoid
Hard to read a map.
out. We're not gonna read the map. I think that, probably some of the statistics, we're not gonna read all of those things. I also think that there's an opportunity for us to change course, should we start going on the path that we decided as a committee that we are gonna read this together. If we go along and 5 minutes in, 15 minutes in, we're like, this is a terrible idea, I'm not getting it, no, collectively, none of us are getting anything out of it. We can also change course. but
Okay.
I do think we've been talking about this for a couple of months, we agreed that we were gonna do this, so.
I don't have my copy with me.
Okay.
I had notes on it too, so.
Right?
Okay, well, I think,
On the other hand, if I'm gonna read it out loud, I don't need to follow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
so I'll just start, and
Okay.
then I'll pause, we can fire out some questions or comments.
Okay.
Interrupt at will. Is that
Interrupt me at will.
Oh, fun.
Sophie,
Yeah,
absolutely.
maybe I won't stay for the whole meeting.
Fair enough.
If that is the end. Hello, my name is Sophie Grant. I'm on the Shandaken Housing Smart Committee. And we just got started last month. And so I just wanted to come and say hello to this whole committee to just establish a line of communication and hopefully collaboration on what we can do together for housing in the town, and recognizing that what the process that's happening here will significantly inform housing and where we can go, and just being able to kind of provide the resources that we're getting through the work that we're doing with the county will hopefully just like contribute.
I think
to
it's
that
gonna be a
work.
great contribution. I was actually gonna contact you
Okay,
and,
cool.
and say, we should come to each other's meetings.
Right, right.
I'm a
Great.
little meetinged out, but
I know.
if,
As am I.
yes.
I'm a little summered out right now too.
But your committee could start by looking at the portions of the comprehensive plan that talk
That
about
pertains
housing.
to that,
Yeah,
yes.
the description of the existing housing. and
Yes,
everything.
that would be great homework for us. And I wanted to say that we, have an opportunity, we're advised by the county to sort of like choose a certain path. And there's like 8 different things we can do in their outline of what a housing task force would do, but one of those things has to do with zoning, and specifically, it could look like having consultants help advise or, provide services and insight at no cost to the town about how you could update zoning to directly achieve your goals when it comes to housing. So I think that's something that if we all agree, doesn't have to be in this moment, that that's a path that the housing committee should explore, considering the timeliness of what
Right.
this committee is exploring, then we want to put our focus to something like that too. So
I'd say the more the better,
Yes.
Yeah.
Are you,
especially if we get it free.
So
if
you-
that feels like that, I don't know where you're at on that thing. I take it, we're all sort of in the beginning stages, so we've only met one time, but,
I have a quick question for Mary. When you emailed that you wanted to address a structure, were you specifically thinking about accessory dwellings?
Yeah, I just wanted the committee, to be aware of that. Now, did you get the email from Jan about accessory dwelling units?
Yes, about the event that was going on.
Yeah, it's-
Yes.
So Thursday,
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's okay. So Thursday night, the county is putting on an event they got a grant, I think it was $1.75 million. And they want to offer grants to individual homeowners up to $125,000 to either put an apartment in their house or an accessory dwelling unit, a freestanding one. Now, of course, we don't have the zoning for that right now, for a freestanding one. I don't think that would work.
But you
We
can,
do.
we do, and you
Oh,
can,
we do?
and
Yeah.
it can be like, you can,
We do, the problem is that you have to, it's a special permit use as opposed to just being something that's
Right,
permitted as a
right,
right directly
right.
from the building
Like you can
department.
already have.
You can't just go to the building department and they can't look at your
Right.
plans, you have to.
So,
send it to
yeah.
Planning board have to notify all your
Yeah.
neighbors, you have to have a public hearing.
Right.
you
So
know, all
so,
those things.
and then you just have to rent it for below market rents. I don't know what the
So
formula
it's
is.
an affordable housing.
For 10 years. So it's an affordable housing initiative to address the shortage of housing in the county. And, I think it's great.
So this is
Yeah.
not for family use? In other words, if you have a family member that.
No, I
That's
can't rent
not-
it to my daughter,
Okay.
No, I think your family can live in it.
Oh, well,
I mean, usually affordable
Yeah, for 10
housing,
years.
it has to be an arm's length kind of thing.
yeah.
I think
So-
I think it's allowed to be owner occupied, I think they're
Okay,
encouraged.
well, we'll have to
And-
wait till
And
Thursday.
it's an
but-
income dependent program, so if you have to, it's for, low to moderate income, I think, so you would have some opportunity, it's not for everybody.
Okay,
If you have enough money to build it yourself, you can just build it yourself.
Right,
They're not gonna
right.
give you money.
right, so,
I would say, it would be really helpful as we're building out the plan to have the housing committee come to us with recommendations in terms of like where you see the biggest blocks to be. Like I think we can send you even like a list of questions, but basically like what are the problems and what are your solutions? What would you guys like to see have happen? And then as we're writing the plan, those would just be directly integrated.
right.
So,
Are you guys gonna do a survey or anything like that?
Of some sort, at
Yeah.
some point, I'm sure.
All right.
But, I think one, not necessarily public survey, but like a housing inventory
Mhm.
has been discussed, of like
Nice.
just getting a sense of what is even out there right now,
Right.
what, because there's all sorts of plans and, programs that are currently existing for updating things to be, updating homes to be ADA compliant, for
Mhm.
instance, or these accessory dwelling units that isn't necessarily building a new structure, but it's like a basement or a garage or, a non-traditional home in the present, but like
Right.
could be some kind of rentable unit. But then also we have opportunities to think of other things that might be better suited for our community
Mhm.
and the goals that we have, and, we can get creative, but if it feels like right now there's low hanging fruit, then we want to definitely work on figuring out how
Right.
to address it. But yeah, we can provide our findings from any data collection that we do, and, I think we'll probably try and tap into the resources sooner rather than later when it comes to like, how do we navigate their consultant options and, how do we get that kind of rolling and make some kind of connection with
All right, cool.
somebody.
And you're still looking for new members, right?
Thank you, yes, we are. We are, because currently we are 4 members.
Okay,
And we would like more, we would like more, locally grown, so to speak, representation, people who, have a familial history here and I was going to, because we meet on the fourth
Yeah.
Mondays at 7 PM.
Just in case anybody has a free Monday. All right, well, thank you. I'm glad you
Yeah,
came.
thank you, and we will make ourselves familiar with the housing component, of the comprehensive plan. Where do we?
It's online if you go to the town website, and they may still have
I feel
some
like I've seen it, but I don't-
printed copies downstairs.
Okay.
But yeah, you'll go through it, and even in the appendix, there's information and stuff like that. We have to update it, but,
Yeah.
the statistics and that kind of stuff, but you could see, I don't think it's really changed that much from when they originally did the comprehensive plan, that kind of stuff. All right,
All right, great.
thank you.
Thank you.
Sophie, are you related to Grace Grant?
I'm not related to any of the grants around here. I'm I guess my dad's a grant, but he was from Michigan, but his family is from Kentucky.
Okay,
So I don't know, I don't think it's the Shandaken grant.
okay.
All right, well, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
Mary, there's copies downstairs, would there be any?
All right,
place I
so
could get
I
one?
think that,
Ask Peter when he's.
I think a good place to start is in the vision statement, because that actually, this will give us an opportunity, I think, to see really like understanding where what the mindset was, and I think that I would recommend that after we just pause and maybe just do a quick little brain dump about like what our vision is for this year, for this new plan. Does that work?
Oh, okay. Oh, it's on the
I
front.
think the vision is, I think it's a really important part. I mean, that's the whole
That's it.
enchilada, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
and we can come back to it, of course, I think this will be an evolving. So-
History is the history.
Yeah, so vision statement, executive summary, a vision for Shandaken. This long-range comprehensive plan flows directly from the following vision for the future of Shandaken Township. Overall, we seek to build a region as one with bustling hamlets, interesting shops, successful restaurants, and attractive overnight accommodation surrounded by open spaces and unspoiled natural beauty. One with a prosperous economy centered around tourism, historically our most enduring business. We seek to protect the existing family businesses which have been the backbone of our economy for generations. I already have comments, but I'm just going to read the whole thing. Above all, we want to preserve the artistic, cultural, educational, and historical assets of our town. We recognize that the Catskill Park and Forest Preserve, the Bel Air Ski Center, and the scenic value of routes 28 and 42 are our centerpiece assets. We want to preserve the character of these corridors as clusters of commercial enterprises separated by open spaces and with a minimum of roadside advertisements and with non-intrusive signage. We also want to encourage the development of Bel Air Ski Center into an all-seasons attraction. We recognize that the primary responsibility for the preservation of the environment is served by an overlay of New York State DEC and New York City DEP regulations. Together, these agencies provide perhaps the most stringent regulatory climate in the state. We need to provide for a viable economy within those regulatory constraints on the land we have left. We put a high priority on the revitalization of our hamlets, developing a vibrant economy in each based on locally owned and operated businesses, cottage industries, retail establishments, and specialty shops. Towards that end, we urge the formation of a citizens committee in each hamlet to work with the SHARP committee and other agencies and organizations as appropriate to develop a coherent, detailed economic development plan with a high probability of success. We urge each hamlet to improve its signage aimed at attracting tourists, particularly Phoenicia and Pine Hill, which are bypassed by Route 28. By no means are we, quote, against developers, end quote. We will work in good faith with any cooperative developer to be sure their proposed plans and developments conform to the criteria set forth by this comprehensive plan and the existing ordinances of the town, signed by Robert G. Cross, Jr., Shandaken Town Supervisor. So, let's go back to the top, and I think we'll just maybe kind of go paragraph by paragraph and just add some, or
Could I maybe just give like an overall?
I think that would be helpful.
I mean, for me, there's some things that I really like I like the idea that there's like very explicit call outs to sort of like directional stuff, like the fact that a lot of the business here is tourism, and there's like a call out to that, I think that's good. You know, the fact that Catskill Park is called out, and some of our like hamlets and channels, kind of, I think that's really good. Something that stands out to me a lot is that there's not really a discussion about like quality of life or like people-centric stuff. And that, to me, I think is really important to include in whatever our final vision is, you know, like what's it like to live here as opposed to just, you know, as opposed to the assets of the town, like what is our experience like living here? Like, I think that's something that's important.
Community character.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting how central, you know, sort of like the vision for how to make this happen is, it's kind of like there's gonna be these small, I forget where exactly it says, but there's gonna be these like hamlet committees, and they're all gonna work with Sharp, and yeah, I mean, none of that, I think exists today, so.
Does Sharp even exist?
Legally exists, but functionally,
They don't do it.
functionally it does not exist.
They own one property.
I think you make a good point that it's more business oriented, this whole page. I'm thinking maybe at that time, the businesses needed a little boost. Like, I remember business is closing up and tourism kind of not really being as active as needed to be to keep the businesses going. So that might be where they're coming from, writing from that point of view. But at this point, things might have changed. Maybe there is enough tourism now, maybe there isn't yet. You know, maybe people are feeling the conflict between more tourists and less quality of life, or, you know, I'm hearing that now.
That's a good survey type question,
Mhm.
something along those lines.
Yeah,
The DC people are always complaining that the parking field for almost all these trailheads are completely full.
Yeah.
And even in the dead of winter.
yeah,
So the fly fishing is trending big time.
good.
Yeah.
I guess-
Yeah, and it was hiking, and they just threw a bunch of hikers off of Slide Mountain, I think it was.
Yeah, well,
Did somebody?
giant ledge, 60 people
Yeah,
wanted to
they-
camp there.
Somebody organized a tour, but they didn't get the proper permits and stuff. They just
I was
rounded
thinking
up some
about
people and
Czechoslovakia.
drove them
I
up
don't
here.
know anywhere.
Yeah,
That was so small.
And they
The
were like-
park rangers had to go up there and kick them off.
he was like, you can't do this.
And
When I first read the article, I
Yeah.
thought it was like homeless people.
Oh, well, I mean.
But I think the second paragraph kind of went towards community character. They just kind of didn't articulate it very well.
Well, everything that's said there sort of flies in the face of the Dunkin' Donuts on Route 28.
Right.
Oh,
The
what?
Dunkin' Donuts
Right,
on Route 28.
right.
Well, like, I guess what I'm thinking of a bit is like, what is the experience like to live here? Like, do we, like, you know, something that I think that we should address, like, you know, is there an for instance, is there an expectation that if you live in a hamlet, you can walk around in the sidewalks? You know, things like that. Like, is there things about what is the people's experience like who live in our town? Like, and just kind of addressing what kind of direction we want the town to work on as far as shaping what that experience is like.
Can you repeat that last one? What is the experience, like, what is the experience?
Well, of the town's experience, so like, whether
What
you.
is the expectation of it, yeah.
Yeah, so like, and how the government would work towards facilitating that vision. So like, is there an expectation that, that people that live in a hollow can walk up and down it? Like, is that something that we expect as a quality of life here? That if you have a kid and you live on a hollow, that you should be able to walk up and down that hollow? Like, is that, you know, some people probably think yes, some people probably think no, you know, but having some kind of vision around that, I think, would be helpful.
You mean safely walk up and down? I mean,
Right, I suppose
without
anyone can
being run over
drive
by
and
a
walk
car.
up
Yeah.
anywhere, yeah.
I think that it also would be good to know how many people living here actually use these tourist facilities like rail trail and other trails, bike paths if we have any. I don't even know if we have any bike paths other than the rail trail. But that would be nice to have for people who live here. We haven't really like explored other than from the point of view of people coming here.
I agree. Yeah, that's something that I definitely noticed.
And a lot of that was asked for the first time in the questions, and never came to fruition. So
What do you mean?
we have to find out. Well, if you, in the appendixes and stuff, like I read all the questions, and people said, we want bike paths and connect to hamlets and all that stuff.
Right, so I think that's a good thing to note, and also that I think we will, as we like continue digging through, is that we'll get to those things and realize, oh,
Yeah.
some of these, what are the things that actually got taken care of, what hasn't, what are the things that aren't relevant anymore? But yeah, I would say my biggest standout is that it really is, it is focused on, there's a lot of focus on tourism and sort of what that looks like why people are coming here. And interestingly enough, like when I think about like a vision statement, or like what I want our vision statement to be, it is way more holistic and less maybe specific. Like the fact that like in the vision statement saying that minimizing roadside advertisements and non-intrusive signage, to me, that is like an interesting contradiction to like the desire also to just ensure that we're encouraging people to come here for tourism.
Right.
But also, yeah, I think that like really thinking more holistically about the core cultural elements of the town and what makes it special, and less.
I was just gonna say, piggyback off that is who are the key players? Like, have we identified the different categories of people that make up this?
Right, and it's all
And
changed.
that'll help you with the vision or the conflict of the
Right.
vision, because there'll be different categories and how much weight does each category.
Demographics has definitely changed from
Demographics.
the time the original one was written in today.
And then even since the last census and today, because of
Yeah.
COVID, like a lot of,
But that would be really important to know
Yeah.
who it is that
Right.
are leading.
a lot of people wanted to encourage tourism because of, that's how their job was, that's where their job was.
Yeah.
But now, it's 18 years later, so not only do we have so many people telecommuting, but then it increased with COVID and more people moved up here, which is why we have a housing shortage. So,
When the first comprehensive town plan was written, housing occupancy was approximately 50%.
mhm.
So half these homes were being occupied
Right.
most of the year. I don't know if that's still true. A lot of these homes got filled up over COVID because people wanted to escape the city and they telecommute.
And we also didn't have
Others were-
Airbnbs back then.
Pardon?
We also didn't have Airbnbs back then.
Right. And now more people are migrating back to the city, so I don't know what the actual
I don't even know how we can
What
figure it out.
What feedback are you getting about that? 'Cause I'm not in a position to even know who's moving back to the city. Do you just get like little pieces of people talking about it, or is there anybody who really knows?
I know,
Yeah.
I have 3 neighbors that moved back.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
yeah.
So that's-
No, it's definitely, I think a global trend. It's
Okay.
North American, there's a lot of controversies to how
Right.
efficient people are, going back to the office, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
But I think there are probably more occupied homes now than there was back when
Right.
2004. Also a younger demographic, and also a more highly educated demographic and a wealthier demographic than was in place back then.
Right.
Pulled some data, not unlimited, I just pulled 2 years. I pulled 2010 and 2021. And the numbers are actually quite similar for housing occupancy. So in 2010, housing occupancy was 57.3%, so just under 60. In 2021, 56.1%. So it's gone slightly down, but only by, a little over 1%.
That would have been pre-COVID though.
2021, yeah, so that's,
Beginning.
that's after COVID started, but not after it's done.
How would we collect more data as far as,
Well, every year, so the census there's a decennial census, and that's considered not particularly accurate, but there is, the census organization does something called the American Community Survey, which is as accurate as it comes, and that happens every year. So, different data is brought in every year, but there are different, not the same questions or the same things get looked at every year, but new stuff comes in every single year.
What was that called again?
It's called the American Community Survey,
Who does that?
the Census Bureau.
Okay.
The biggest thing, I think, we can't lose sight of the fact that tourism is and always has been the economic driver of this entire area.
Yeah.
And it really hasn't changed that dramatically.
I beg
Yeah.
to differ. Shandaken had a lot of different, they had the bluestone quarries, and then cement put them out of business, and they had the tanning, and they cut down all the trees, and that put them out of business. And then the railroads decided they didn't want to just pull freight. So that's when they built the hotels, all the big hotels. They were owned by the railroads. So they were bringing tourists
They
out.
weren't all owned by the railroads.
But, so High Mount was,
They were powered by
the Grand Hotel
They were
was.
powered by the railroads. That's how
No,
people got
the
here.
Grand Hotel
That's how
was.
people got here.
Yeah. And then the railroads, so there was a big peak in the beginning of the last century. But after that, it stabilized. And there's a lot of businesses that,
Okay, so tell me,
You know.
if tourism isn't the economic driver, what is today?
a million other businesses, I mean, there's like a
What?
million other businesses.
For
But,
example? What's the-
I mean, I'm not arguing
No,
with you
what's
that
the
it's,
economic driver?
well, IBM was a big
No,
business
now,
for a while.
currently now.
Yeah.
You're saying, what is, right now, what is the biggest?
I don't know.
What is the biggest economic driver?
So how about that? Yeah, I think that,
I don't know, my husband works for the DOT, so that was the economic driver in our household.
Okay. Where's his thing?
But now there's more.
The census will
home-based-
probably tell us, I don't have that info
I don't
off
think
the
we need
top of my head.
census. I mean, we know what the economic driver is up here. I think everybody here knows that it's tourism.
I think the question is, why are people, like, if you look at why people move to this area or buy property in this area, like, I think even in this, what we read in the vision statement, these are still valid today.
Sure.
Like, I think they still are, so.
I mean, take for instance, if Bel Air or Mountain didn't exist, how do you think our community would be today?
Right.
Well, there's more home-based businesses that can operate from home. Like you can be a major stockbroker player,
Well, home-based businesses can exist anywhere in the
Anywhere,
world.
right. Like,
Right.
what makes,
but they exist here more so.
but what makes, like, I think what Royce is saying is like, what makes Shandaken stand out from any other area in the state of New York, any other township in the country? Like, the reason that people are choosing to live here is because it's beautiful, it's got a gorgeous landscape, right?
And there are things to do, and there's more and more things to do
Right.
as time moves
But
on.
I wouldn't say that people are moving to Shandaken for DOT. We're not seeing a flock of people saying, I'm gonna move to Shandaken and buy a house because I'm gonna work for DOT. People are saying, I wanna move to Shandaken and buy a house there because it's beautiful, because there's things to do, because I can work from home, so I can be in this beautiful, or I'm gonna buy a house because I can rent it out, because people are coming to this area because it's beautiful, so on and so forth. So, again, I do think that it is an interesting question that we might get answers from the census. We could even put this in our questionnaire for our own information. What do you think? What do you think Shandaken's biggest economic driver is? We can ask the town that.
Why are you here?
Why are you here? Why do you live here?
Why did you come here?
Why did you come
Yeah.
here? We can ask all of these questions, and then that, I think, that is gonna generate the answers that we want. Not only what is our opinion, but what is the town's opinion.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I think
Yeah.
there's been a lot of work done over the years that we know what the economic drivers are. I mean,
Absolutely, right.
Well, I think if we ask the question on the survey, why did you come here? What attracted you to look here? Why are you staying?
And what keeps you here?
What keeps you here? And then it might just become the same thing, only now we would have the whole community's opinion on it.
I think that gives us more, to James's point, I think that gives us more color. It gives us an opportunity to understand what the purpose of this comprehensive plan is. Is it, who is it being written for?
Yeah.
And why? So by generating those questions, that is just gonna give us more insight, more information for us to better do our job. So,
Two essential elements that make this community unique are the land use of the New York City watershed and New York State Forest, which ensures the wilderness component.
And that's nothing that we have any influence over whatsoever. So, I mean, that's, you know, it's like the Bible. I mean, it's not gonna change.
No, it's just
Right.
influencer.
I agree, and I think.
It's a huge influence.
So I think, again, I think that,
So it works in conjunction with those two.
So wait, you
right, so
said
in
the,
terms of the comprehensive plan, we're not gonna maybe write into the comprehensive plan a redirection around the watershed, but understanding, I think those pieces of information can go into the comprehensive plan to give a broader picture of what the community looks like. So instead of our new comp plan saying, you know, what it says here of wanting to, I just got on the wrong page. You know, Bel Air Ski Center being the central point, like, it's our opportunity to say where things are today. So I think my recommendation would be is to just go back in to like dig just a scotch deeper, and see like how do we think things have changed now? What is relevant from this and what is no longer relevant in terms of our vision? I think when this was written, they sought to build their region with bustling hamlets, interesting shops, successful restaurants, and attractive overnight accommodations, surrounded by open spaces and unspoiled beauty. Prosperous economy centered around tourism, historically our most enduring business, and to seek to protect the existing family businesses. So, I mean, looking through this, bustling hamlets, interesting shops, successful restaurants, attractive overnight accommodations.
A lot of that's already been achieved.
Right. I mean, I think that it's probably, the change there would just be that we're looking to uphold that, right? And then is there anything that we would want to add there? Like, again, I think maybe we get the answers from
Yeah, I think it's
From our
probably too early to come up with a vision but I think we can.
It hasn't changed that much.
right.
I think we need to
We need-
hear from the people
Yeah, exactly.
before, to see what the vision
Yeah.
is.
Okay.
Because I'm sure, like, what's not in there is, the housing crisis.
Yeah.
We're losing our young families. They want to close the school.
So is there anything else maybe then, that's something else that would be helpful before we move on? Like, is there anything else that anyone wants to add that they feel like is broadly missing from this vision?
The
Like
thing
the-
about, just what you said, Mary, is what to protect.
Yes.
The one thing that has to be protected is the housing for,
Right.
you know, low-income.
Like you said, between the DEP and the state, everything else is already protected. So we
Okay.
gotta, you know,
So that's the thing that should be.
our scope of what we have to protect is very
But it
much
hasn't
more
been,
narrowed. you
it
know.
hasn't been included in the past, and it should be included.
Okay, yeah.
A note about the housing.
Is there anything that you feel like you would really want to, that you feel like is missing?
Well, I mean, there's nothing about, you know, historic resources or anything on that level, you know, statement, and, I disagree that the primary responsibility for preservation of the environment is served by DEC and DEP regulations.
Yeah.
I don't think that's very accurate. I think that as a community, we, you know, have the authority and the responsibility to, go beyond, you know, some of what those protections are, which, you know, DEC doesn't regulate very much of what we do.
Yeah.
And especially since recently the Army Corps of Engineers' ability to regulate development and alteration of federal wetlands was struck down by the Supreme Court. So now there are no longer any inherent protections for wetlands that are less than 12.6 acres.
Oh, wow.
So, you know, and the smaller wetlands are the ones that serve as stormwater filtration. They address, you know, hold back stormwater, and help provide, you know, some ease of volume of stormwater as it enters water courses, and also, as, you know, habitat for unique species that require, you know, smaller wetland areas, shallower, and different plants and whatnot, so.
So what were you thinking of historic? Because it was mentioned in here, artistic, cultural, and educational and historical assets of our town we want to preserve.
Yeah, I mean, we could bolster that a little bit if, you know.
I mean, do you have something in mind?
Well, I
that-
think that, we have existing buildings with character that we should be seeking to preserve and revitalize, and at the same time considering how to, you know, infill or, add on or whatnot in a way that, you know, is complementary of existing
I agree with
architectural
you,
features that we
because
can
you don't,
add.
you don't know what you've got until it's gone.
Yeah.
Like you have the 1890
I've heard
house.
that before.
Yeah. Good, I'm not just dating myself.
But yeah.
But you have the 1890 house, you know, I think there should be, we need to recognize these buildings.
Yeah,
you
historical
know,
resources
you
and
know, and protect
preservation.
them.
And also, you know, cemeteries.
We have a ridiculous amount of cemeteries in this town.
And, you know, small.
I did a
small
database,
bigger.
it's
They're
really,
getting bigger.
it's really crazy, but,
Small,
you know, and I,
cemeteries,
Yeah.
maybe places of archaeological significance that we just want to, you know, keep in mind.
That is always part of the site plan
Yeah,
review.
that's part of any site plan.
Yeah,
approval is
they have to-
Historical and architectural.
no, but we don't have anything
We're not talking
concrete.
about roads, we're talking
Yeah.
about visions.
Vision, a vision
Yeah.
for our town,
Yeah.
because
But if they were already protected by codes,
they're not.
Well, it just has to be, it has to be considered.
Yes.
That's all it really has.
It doesn't necessarily mean,
Which code in place does something slack?
it could mean recognizing, it could mean, you know, creating tributes to. It's not
Mhm.
necessarily, I'm not necessarily talking about, you know, ways to regulate or.
Yeah, signage.
You know, just
or,
ways that-
advertising.
I mean, people,
You're talking about
they
vision.
go on walking tours of Kingston to look at all the historic houses.
Yeah.
Anyway.
There's tourism, you know, it all ties together. But I want to see,
And then also,
I moved here to raise my family. And I
okay,
think with the declining numbers in the school,
okay.
I think it's an important that we want to support all residents, you know. We don't want to become a bedroom community or retirement town, you know.
So then what do you think?
I don't know
what's
how to
another way
word
that
it.
can be-
I don't know how
So
to-
like,
I
just,
think, I would just say, like, I think that should, I completely agree with that, but I think that we probably will have to include it in the survey somehow,
Yeah.
and then
Mhm.
represent that in the
Yeah.
vision. Like, for me, like, I would love to see a set of I'm gonna say a set, but at least one question that directly addresses, like, how do you feel about the fact that we have population loss? And, like, do you think it's important for the town to proactively take steps to address
Right.
a declining population? And, you know,
So
I
maybe
think we
then-
need to pull that out of the public.
Yeah.
If that does get pulled out, you know, whatever does get pulled out, make sure that's represented, because that's a pretty big change that has happened, you know, since this last plan, and having some kind of, action on it, I think is
Right.
important.
okay, so the things I've just heard are for things that are missing from our vision, from this vision that we would like to see brought up, is a focus on, housing, looking at historical resources and protection, environmental protection, population loss, what it's like to live here, so meaning, I'm gonna actually change that to be community character.
Right.
And then what it's like to live here is the subheading. And then so population loss, I'm trying to think if that's what is missing is,
Well, some people might like it, I mean, I don't know.
right, that's why I'm like, is it,
You know, as the demographics change, full-time residents versus part-time residents, or people that didn't grow up here and didn't have kids go to school here.
These are up there.
We've got some of those.
Okay.
Those answers are gonna get skewed.
So
Yeah.
demographics,
You know?
period, just.
I think that's,
Yeah.
Yeah, I would add to that, to the demographics, something that I feel like is missing, and I would say that like, and maybe this falls under the community character, but, looking at what our like core values are as a community, that I think that, what does it look like for queer people? What does it look like for people of color? Specifically those two categories to live here. And,
Very important.
like what does it look like to have LGBTQ task force? What does it look like to have an anti-racist task force? What is it, like how are these zoning laws and
How
yeah,
does
how does that
encourage
affect-
our town to be welcoming?
yeah, like how does it affect those communities?
We should include language about inclusion.
Right. I would say it's not just, it's like, I would say it's inclusion, and, yeah.
Well, how do you really find that out?
How do you find out? Well, it's,
Where the community stands?
I think it's more about, it's less about, well, that's its own question, but I think in terms of what, we have an opportunity to to create a mission statement or a vision for what we want the
Yeah.
town to look like. So it's our opportunity, we can get that information, hopefully we'll get pulled out within our questions of like, what is your opinion? Do you think this is a welcoming place for LGBTQ folks? Is this a welcoming place for people of color? Like, we can ask those questions, but I think regardless of that, I think we have an opportunity to put that into our vision statement as to what we want our town to look like.
I think it may be termed inclusion and acceptance,
Sure, yeah.
they're two different things.
Education.
Would you welcome a community with more inclusion? Good question, would you welcome more inclusion within the community? Carefully
Yeah.
worded.
I think another issue that's related to that is people who are poor.
Disadvantage and
Yeah.
elderly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because, every time you talk about housing, that does kind of rear its head. It's, oh, well, okay, I believe we should have affordable housing, but I don't really want a Section 8 housing development next to me. And
Right.
the implication is, it's because I don't want those people living next to me, because I don't trust them. So that's a big issue, no matter where you live.
No, you're gonna have the NIMBY attitude always up here, not in my backyard.
Right.
But the other thing is, what draws my mind is homelessness.
Well, that's
How do we
even
deal
more,
with
yeah,
The next step further is,
yeah.
what's a vision for homelessness, how do we deal with it?
Mhm.
Because it's coming.
Looks here.
Right, so it's better to be aware of it and prepared and looking forward rather than having it come through the back door.
And I'll put that under the housing crisis.
Yeah.
Now, if we are going to ask about that in the survey, it'd be interesting to see what people say.
Sure,
You know.
we've gotta be very cautious about what we're asking, but I agree, there should be something in there. All right, so anything else that we feel is, that you would like to see more of, or see something talked about that isn't, like I would say, or that we want less talked about, I don't know, but housing, community character, historic resources, or environmental protection, inclusion and acceptance.
So, I don't know where this fits, but I'm just thinking recreation, like,
Yeah.
how does recreation fit?
Great.
The rail trails, the Bel Air,
Mhm.
the hiking, something should be mentioned.
Absolutely.
And the town recreational facilities,
Yep. Great.
whether we need more, whether they're
Especially
adequate, whether
for-
there's specific things that the community would like to
Right.
see added.
Like, there's nothing for young teens,
Right.
very little for young teens, and that, it would be nice to.
Are we doing a skate park?
It's on the docket when we get
Uh-huh.
a bunch of money.
I think we should have, I think another thing that's missing in here is access to fresh food,
Yeah.
this being a food desert.
Yes.
Agriculture.
How the economy
Huh?
works.
Agriculture,
Agriculture,
climate resilience.
Solar
yeah,
farms.
we already have environmental protections, but
Not like the same thing.
climate protections,
No, resilience.
climate resilience.
Yes.
Okay, I'll put that in that category of the environment. How about that? Access to food, agriculture, somebody said something else that I.
Healthcare.
Healthcare, great.
How about solar installations?
Okay.
Or just alternative energy sources.
Put that under environment too.
Well, there's hydroelectric,
Alternative
which we
energy.
don't want to really see that raise its head again.
We don't wanna.
What about you, Kev?
I don't know that it needs to go into an opening vision statement, but things like flood resiliency are huge for the town. You know,
Especially
maintaining, looking at the work that the CAC is doing, focusing on being climate smart and a green community, I think is worth throwing in there.
I'll put that under
For
environment.
climate resilience, also being prepared for things like mudslides, landslides,
100%.
washouts. And wildfires,
Mm-hmm.
which we will probably be seeing more and more of.
All right, so then that throws in the emergency services.
Okay.
That's a factor, right?
Our,
This is
our
great,
vision,
you
our
guys. This
vision
is
statement's gonna be
exactly-
the comprehensive.
This is exactly what I was hoping would happen by us doing this, so.
Yeah.
This is, everyone's doing a great job. Emergency services.
And that would be anywhere from police, fire,
Sure.
and
And communications.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Our favorite
Really?
conversation, communications, so we're gonna include internet, phone, cell service, poles.
oh my god.
Fiber
I'm
optics.
joking. What?
Fiber optics.
Fiber optics. All right, what else is in here? Oh, so what about like, do we want to, I think there's conversation about locally owned and operated businesses. What's a cottage industry?
That would be like working out of your home.
It's like
Okay.
somebody making maple syrup, in
Yeah.
their
Okay, okay.
back barn or.
So locally owned and operated businesses, so I think we still have a question of, this isn't missing, but I think it's important to include, like, the economics, like what is the word I'm looking for?
You mean what's already in the mission statement?
Just, yeah, and maybe just ensuring that, yeah, I guess maybe now.
Yeah, I mean, we still have to include that, yeah.
You have something to say on?
You mentioned Dunkin' Donuts, and I don't know what you said about that prior, but it's like, do we have any, like, what's the protocol for
It's
Dunkin'
zoning.
Donuts or those franchises?
It's zoning.
Right.
It's zoning.
The courts don't allow you to discriminate against corporate businesses. They allow you to have your own series of architectural design requirements. I think that you can exclude a drive-through as a use if you want, but, again, I would make the argument right now that since we don't have it as drive-through listed, that it's not permitted.
But right now, we could not stop somebody from putting up golden arches.
No,
No,
Putting up what?
we don't have anything.
but no, our code, you can't. The courts have a.
No, but you can have design
You can have
standards.
design standards.
That's what I'm
Signs
saying.
can
We
only
don't
be
have
so
that.
high, or
The-
things
We don't have any.
can't be
The
internally.
Walmarts,
illuminated.
the Walmarts in Vermont are beautiful.
So if we want to avoid having crappy development, we may need to have some more specific
Yeah.
architectural and design requirements.
And
So
in
I'm
Walton-
gonna add that in
yeah.
the zoning and planning recommendations.
Yeah, I mean, the reason there's no drive-throughs up here is because nobody's proposed it because there's not enough traffic to warrant it, you know?
Yeah, good
So-
idea.
There's not even a Storts up here because Storts says there's not enough going on up here.
Very silly.
Ellen's got
Yeah,
something to say.
to going back to communication, how about working up a good public access station?
Yeah.
Public access.
We have the airwidth, the bandwidth, whatever you call it right now, nobody does it. It's
Yeah,
for
we
these
need a
local
little
town meetings.
studio and some equipment and
Oh, my God. that's so
producers,
great.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need another alternative to Spectrum.
and you don't have to get expensive.
Well,
equipment.
yeah.
Okay,
As
great.
you
I'll
consider, I
add
had to
that.
take a bathroom break, because walking out, somebody mentioned wildflowers, that made me think, possibly write in, an enhancement or enablement of the emergency services.
We got that, actually, right, yeah.
Thank you. I'm thinking specifically of fire departments.
Yeah.
And I'm told there's nobody, no new volunteers for these fire departments, and most of these people are older.
Well,
So
there
they
aren't
go-
that many young people that,
Exactly.
I know my sons are in this town.
They can't live here.
All right, should we go on to page 2?
Yeah, great job, everybody. Honestly, I think
That might
that-
be a next month thing. It's-
Wait, so we're done with the vision statement?
I think this is,
Okay.
I think we did a great start for the things
Okay.
that we wanna see in there.
Grants and
Oh,
things
it's
like
just
that.
one-
to be able to
okay, I
qualify
get it.
for things.
I think we can skip page 2.
We're,
I was-
Look at that, double
we
R.
can skip down to page.
We're flying now.
Huh?
I think we can't get mired in the minutia on something like this. You know,
Okay.
the whole idea behind this is to be compliant with the state and to be able to get grants and things. And quite honestly, who's gonna read this thing once we're done with it? I've had a copy in my house for 15 years, and I think I went through it quickly once. I think we have.
Well, I
That's
think-
part of
think-
the problem with the community, though.
Well, and I'm someone who's interested in the community, so, you know, 90% of the community doesn't even know this exists.
I would say the important thing of who is getting.
So I think we gotta work on the points that are gonna help us get what we need for the community. you
What,
know?
and how is that different from what we're doing right now?
I think we're getting into minutia on some things.
Could I have an example of that?
It's just that we're throwing out anything and everything. I think we gotta be more,
Well, this is sort of like a funnel effect.
yeah, we gotta,
We're narrowing it down.
This is the process.
I'm pretty sure, just to
Yeah.
recap, I believe what the decision that we made is that we're gonna review the old comprehensive plan.
right,
And then we're gonna make notes as to what we would like to see change.
additions, deletions, et cetera.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So,
But based on what we get from the community, and we're going to do that by way of specific questions that we want them to answer.
But also, it's more than just a survey. There needs to be a series of public outreach meetings.
Yeah.
Where, specific exercises are done to collect the opinions and of the different stakeholder groups that we know are out there that we're trying to make sure are included. So, part of what's changed in the time since this document was done was the ability, the formats for which you can do outreach. In 2005, everybody didn't have access to the internet in the
It was
same
snap.
way, or, you know, so,
Send a
so
letter.
the techniques and the sophistication of how to reach out to a community has grown a lot. And that's where we'll really benefit from the help of a planning consultant to help us, you know, get that going. And, you know, quite honestly, I don't know how much utility there is in treating this as like a document that we are editing like it's a college paper, but rather, you know, a process of comprehensive planning that we are facilitating. And while we may be able to keep some of the structure or some of the, you know, some of the content, you know, we're not here to just edit this document.
What's the point of the
It's more
department?
of an outline, I
Mhm.
think, of what we can use.
Right.
And it's a broad outline, that
Mhm.
doesn't need to be stuck to.
I guess that's what I was thinking, here, broader.
Did you get the link that I sent to everybody, Roy, about zoning in the comprehensive plan from New York State?
I did not get it.
Okay, I'm gonna make sure I send it to you. It's a training session from New York State. The video's like an hour and a half. And there's also a paper to read, but the paper is not as long as you think it is. There's a lot of footnotes. But it'll explain a lot more concisely than I can right now. But it
Could you
is,
send that out to everybody?
Yeah,
Just so we'll-
yeah,
Because
yeah.
I don't know if I can find it.
I know, I
Like I said, I had a copy
emailed them.
at my house for years.
Okay,
Oh, can we all
we not have
stay on
crosstalk?
task and no side chatter?
Everybody pays attention.
Roy and Mark.
I don't think we're going.
no,
Save it for the
no
end of
side
the
chatter. People at home can't hear us.
I mean, we can definitely use that as a process, and I just wanted to, you know, make clear that
That's not what we're.
that's, yeah,
I
that's
agree.
part of, you know, it's part of the task that we can
Yes.
use as a constructive
I agree.
way to facilitate discussion, ideas,
Exactly.
brainstorming,
Thank you.
and whatnot, but.
Perfect, thank you.
It's 8:12 right now, what do we want to accomplish?
Oh, geez.
How much time do we need?
5:08.
I mean, I still stand behind that it's, I think this is a valuable conversation.
Mhm.
I think that as Hillary said, it is creating a structure by which we can continue to delve deeper. I think what I've seen is that we have a lot of great ideas in this committee, but that there's a lot of tangential conversation. And I think that thus far, even in that 1 hour that we just did that, yes, did it take time, but I do think that that's the first time, at least that I've been here, that I've seen us collectively brainstorm about what it is that we're looking to actually accomplish.
Right.
So I'm hopeful that by continuing in this manner, yes, while it is tedious, and I think that it is generating the types of conversations that we need to be having to get us all on the same page.
Totally agree.
I also
And-
think that the vision was a particularly broad section, and I think that
I agree.
most of the rest of these sections are gonna be quite narrow.
Yeah.
And will probably have significantly less discussion than, I mean, vision is
Huge.
huge, so, you know, I think,
Funnel down.
I
Yeah.
think the rest of this should be, I think each section should be considerably faster than
I
what we
agree.
just did.
Right, and especially if everybody would read the plan and make notes on your copy, so you will know,
Yeah.
you know me, I want everybody to read.
So-
You can even get an ice cream cone from the library.
So I would say my recommendation is we go to the introduction, which is page 9, like we had just
Okay.
said that we would do. And I will read it. I will read it as quickly as possible. Then we can do, again, just a quick brain dump. Is there anything that we want that stands out to people? So on and so forth. Okay.
Okay.
So, introduction, New York State Town,
How long, much longer do we want to stay?
well, how long is this meeting supposed to
Say
go?
10,
An
an
hour.
hour?
Oh, then we can stop. Sorry.
It's okay, I was having fun too.
Yeah, for some reason I thought we went till 8:30. I don't know why I thought that. Oh, I'm fine.
Let's
We
go to
could.
8:30. Let's go to, I
Okay.
move that we go to 8:30.
Okay.
Anybody who
Let's
wants
get
to leave
more
can
done.
leave.
Great.
There'll be no
Okay,
penalty.
New York State town law authorizes preparation of a master comprehensive plan by a town and sets forth the procedures to be followed. The law includes a statement of legislative findings and intent that emphasizes the importance importance of the planning process, the health, safety, and general welfare of town residents, and the essential need for open citizen participation in the design of the comprehensive plan. The law goes on to define the comprehensive plan as follows, quote, "Town comprehensive plan means the materials, written and or graphic, including but not limited to maps, charts, studies, resolutions, reports, and other descriptive materials that identify the goals, objectives, principles, guidelines, policies, standards, devices, and instruments for the immediate and long-range protection, enhancement, growth, and development of the town located outside the limits of any incorporated village or city," end quote. The plan for the town of Shandaken recognizes that future actions in the town are dependent on a variety of factors and interrelated decisions by both government agencies and private property owners, including many that cannot be predicted in advance. Therefore, the plan is designed as a policy document that sets forth goals and objectives for the town's future, which can be used to evaluate future proposals for actions by public and private entities. The plan will serve as a guide for decision makers and a statement of the town's policies for its future. Most rural communities, like the town of Shandaken, were originally established without comprehensive plans, review boards, or regulatory controls. The historic hamlets and natural features, which shaped growth and rural roads, remain from the era of initial development and combine to create a picturesque environment that has formed the basis for long-standing tourist-based economy. By carefully examining current conditions and issues in the context of citizen involvement, a community can prepare a comprehensive plan to guide its futures. The plan should establish community goals and include recommendations intended to preserve the environment while supporting growth that is compatible with community standards. The town of Shandaken does not have a comprehensive plan. However, the town has enacted land use regulations to guide development, including the subdivision regulations approved in 1971, the town's first zoning law enacted in 1976, and substantially revised and amended in 1987. This law delineates 8 zoning districts and provides standards for development in each district. In 1999 and 2004, the town board applied for and received grants from the New York State Department of State and the New York Department of Transportation to prepare its first master plan. The board appointed a comprehensive plan committee to prepare a plan for recommendation to the town board. Under New York State law, such a plan can only be adopted by the town board. In the course of preparing this plan, 2 critical sets of resources have been used. Resource protection and environmental development strategy for the Route 28 corridor. And then there's a list of other things.
Well, they all have to be updated anyway,
Yeah.
because there's so much more data.
So there's a list of things. Public involvement, this has been, so maybe I'll just pause there really quick. I mean, I would say nothing really stands out as, there's nothing glaringly offensive about that. Anything that I read. Or wrong.
No, I mean,
Or misread.
it's all just, it's just stating facts, existing facts, so I think you could skip through and
Great.
go to where it starts talking about vision personally.
Okay. I will say, I do think this, I will say this one last thing I think is interesting. The public involvement, an integral part of the development of this plan. Opportunities for public comment have been created since the initial step of the plan development starting in 2000. There was a questionnaire, 3,000 surveys were mailed, 759 households responded. Community workshops, there were 2 community workshops held at Town Hall. Public meetings, looks like there was 4 public meetings that were held. And then there were 13 committee meetings held, 6 additional meetings, 10 following meetings, so that's, right? So 29 meetings in total were held. I think I sounded that correctly.
Yeah.
So I do think that's something we haven't really talked about that I think would be interesting. We've talked about a survey being presented, but
And we had a lot of side meetings too, because we had working groups, and we would work outside of those meetings.
Well, that's what I was talking about,
Yeah.
way different different ways to outreach the community, stakeholder meetings.
Yeah.
Just, we could do the survey online, which is something that we should be able to get a lot more responses than, the old style way of mailing them to households.
How would you guys feel about just doing a quick brain dump about
Text surveys.
text, yeah, like what we would like to see,
Logistics of surveys.
yeah, or like what we would like to see happen around that?
What do you mean?
Like
Or-
Survey Monkey or.
No, I guess like,
Community input generally.
yeah, like how we would like to garner community input. Do we want to do these other,
But we seem to definitely
No,
want to
you
do a
definitely,
survey.
you need to do all of these different.
Yeah,
things.
all of those
And-
things.
And that's what a
Yeah.
planning consultant would structure those, run them, use all the new,
Great.
like, know what.
We do it all the time and know the best
Yeah.
ways to get the
I'm not
best
even gonna
response.
Things where you stick, everybody stick,
Great,
there's
I'm
a
not
list
gonna write
of,
anything.
list of different things, go put your dot next to the things that are
Yeah.
most important to
And
you.
we held them
Add
at
all the
different
most important
times
dots.
to include everybody.
You remember, like that, all those kind of things, they'll have a whole toolbox of ways that
So
we.
we don't have to recreate the wheel.
No, we'll just choose how, how we want it to work, how we want to reach the people, like, do we want to try and, just putting out something, if you're gonna do a workshop and just being like, hey, come to the workshop, we could specifically target people, we could invite all of, the fire department and have pizza, or, just different ways to make sure that you get as many segments of our community to participate in a way that is comfortable and productive for them.
700 plus respondents back in the day is extremely high response.
It is pretty good.
It would be
Wow.
extremely well to achieve that today.
great,
So the
It was a-
component is how to garner community input. That's the
Mm-hmm.
title of the area that needs to be dealt with.
yeah. And it sounds like for this, yeah, but we don't wanna go any deeper in this moment, and that,
Well, we need to come up with what we want to find out from the community. The consultant isn't gonna be able to do that for us.
of course, those are the, that's.
It's just
gonna
for
be
the format, I guess.
They'll,
Yeah.
they'll
And they will
definitely
help
be
you.
able to help.
Yeah, they'll guide us because,
Because I was not happy with the survey in the previous. It was just too general.
No,
We can talk about that in a
hopefully we can
second.
do it in less than 5
Yeah.
years too.
Right. Well, I think a lot of that was not being able to agree on anything.
Yeah, all right, well, I guess we can just stop there then.
okay.
I don't know,
Would we do the history part together? That's kind of
subgroup,
subgroup, or I mean,
I mean, the
Yeah,
whole
maybe so.
first part of the document is just talking about existing conditions, so, we
Yeah.
can, it's information that can be, plugged in,
yep,
rather than something that we have to discuss
Right.
about,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, it's just research.
Yeah, I mean, there'll be new things to add, and maybe some different points that we want to.
Well, there are things in that can be added to the history.
right. I think a couple, whenever we discussed, like a couple months ago, that's when we decided who was gonna review
Mhm.
each area, and I do think that the history, not much is gonna change, but I do think that updating that. So it's section 2, Shandaken today,
Right.
is where we would want to jump back in
next month.
next month.
That seems really for me.
I mean, some of this stuff, I think what we had decided like a couple months ago is that some of these facts exist and would need to be extracted from wherever they exist and then added into the document. Like
Oh, all this data we could find ourselves on online. We don't have to wait for a consultant.
right,
When we did the scenic byway.
Oh, were you involved in that?
Yeah, was that, what, 2010?
Yeah.
There was an extensive survey about the historic elements of the community, extensive survey about the geological,
Oh,
archaeological.
nice.
So that exists somewhere, and probably Doris Bartlett would probably have that on record somewhere. But yeah, there's a lot of work.
Are you friendly with her?
Yeah.
Could you find that out? You are?
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Yeah, let's look into that.
The history and then the, geological history.
Yeah.
That would be really super.
I think an old survey of the.
Because that's one of the things that was in this plan that happened, and the interpretive center happened.
Right.
And, well, now Bel Air's under new ownership, so we have to change that.
So I'm looking at employment of Shandaken full-time residents. Do we have data available for that?
Well, there's data in here, and
Yes,
like
yes,
we
yeah,
said,
there's, the census has data.
the
on it.
census.
So this is
has
from
it.
the census?
Yeah, and then the
The
American
census
Community.
puts you into categories, so
Mhm.
it groups occupations into wide groups, and so,
And that's what we're seeing here.
Yeah,
I don't know, I
it is,
Yeah.
because it's not really,
It's the finance, insurance, real estate, rental and leasing is one.
yeah.
Arts, entertainment, recreation,
yeah, that
hotel and
sounds-
food.
that sounds-
Yeah.
They're a little different now, but those are probably the same exact ones.
Mhm.
Okay.
Got it.
I would, yeah, I was surprised significantly more web developers than existed at the last plan.
Right, yeah. And it will also show us the changes in the population, you know, just the baby boomers are aging and
Really?
our kids are gone.
Yeah.
And we have to fill our time with meetings.
What'd you say?
I said we have to fill our time with meetings. Yes, so I make a motion, we close the meeting?
Second.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye. Okay. And I said this before, read your
Did we
comprehensive
accept the
plan.
minutes from last?
Nope.
No, because we got them late, so
Oh, okay.
we didn't.
I accept.
So they were,
We do it next meeting, we'll do both minutes?
yeah,
Okay, we just gotta remember that.
yeah. I'll put that in there.
Will you take it?
I said I wasn't there.
I took,
Oh.
Grace is gonna be pissed, I took 1,500 logical from them.
Oh, so she's gonna read your notes rather than.
She should read
It's a lot
them.
easier than listening to the video. Kevin, that's kind of the way Olivia does the minutes. She sort of, just kind of, it's sort of like, she writes everything down that was said, which is very helpful, but it must be a lot of work.
It's all
Why it was so.
sentence fragments, so you go through each plan.
Yeah.
Yeah. The very first, drinking community was at one of the first meetings of this year, and I'm so proud.
Give you enough bathroom.
I'm so proud of the very first